Good morning. First of all, thank you to Joy McPherson for all the entertaining conversations that we've had over the past few months to come here today and speak with you about sleep. I like to start off with a little confession, and that is that I love to sleep. Sometimes I even get 8 hours, and there are days where I even take a nap. But it's a habit that I like, and I'm hoping that you'll join me on that course towards better sleep. As Joy was saying, I have been an educator for 15 years, starting out at John Muir Medical Center, founding a workshop program for new families of multiples, and then in November 2003, so just about 10 years ago, I started my sleep coaching practice. I educate sleep coaches through an international webinar series. We have students in 32 countries, so that tells you that sleep issues are worldwide. And I also have the opportunity to speak at various conferences throughout the United States and different corporations, Facebook and other corporations in the Silicon Valley, where people are definitely not taking the time to get the sleep they need. So my goal here today is to really help educate you about what is sleep, why do we need to sleep, and what you can do to really start examining your own sleep needs. So I will circle back at the end to answer some questions for you. As you know, this is actually a 3-part presentation. So today my goal is to really introduce you to the problems and the impact of sleep deprivation, and then we'll go on in our coming weeks to talk about self-assessment, which I'll be sharing with you. Joy will have a handout a little bit later, and then talking about action items. So I like to use the Leaning Tower of Pisa because that kind of reminds me of someone that's a little sleep deprived and kind of standing sideways. So this is sort of a nice acronym for you to think about and remember that we're looking at the problem, the impact, giving you the opportunity to do a self-assessment and then to take action to improve your sleep. And I want to say, too, that we're in an environment where your sleep matters. My safety matters if you're sleeping or not. And so it's really important, and for you as well, to know that on the road, in the air, with your family, this isn't just about you here sitting in these seats today, but how it impacts us globally. The Center for Disease Control actually made a statement about a week ago saying that sleep deprivation is actually at epidemic proportion. And so I want you to all understand what the far-reaching impacts are of sleep that go beyond you being tired sitting here today. And let me just say that if you fall asleep during my talk, I will take it as a compliment. Okay, I'll be doing my job, my work will be done here, and I can go off and talk about sleep somewhere else. So it's a lot of information. I hope you'll be mildly entertained, but mostly informed as we go through this. So if you don't have a cup of coffee in hand, you may have had one earlier today or might grab one on the way out the door. But why am I here today? I really want to wake you up to understand what sleep needs are and what it is that you're getting and not getting and what you need. I want to provide you with some guidelines and solutions so you understand how much sleep do we need. Self-assess. So I could go home with you tonight and climb in bed in my pink fuzzy pajamas and watch you sleep and see how well you sleep and how long it took you to fall asleep, but I can't be so many places at once. So the onus is sort of upon you to really understand what it is that you're getting in the way of sleep. So I'll also be sharing a sleep diary with you that I really hope that you'll take home and use with your family to look at how you're sleeping and what the impact is on any given day or any given night in terms of what you're doing and not doing and what you're getting and not getting. And then the question really is, are you ready to change? It's great to come and get an hour's worth of information, but are you ready to make the changes? Because some of the things I might share with you today, you may not want to hear. Turning off your computer, not having your iPad in bed, skipping that extra glass of wine before you go to sleep, even though it makes you fall asleep, what it does to you physiologically while you're sleeping. So the question is really, are you ready to change? I'm here to give you the tools to change. I want to invite you to join me and actually take it to heart. And this isn't just for you. This is for all the people around you, your coworkers, your family, your friends. You can be the change champion. And I've talked to some corporations that talk about, wellness champions in their organizations that sort of lead the effort to make a change, whatever it might be, safety, others, the Fitbits, getting exercise, or getting the sleep that you need. So, when you see your coworker nodding off, hey, Karen Schwarzbach can tell you a couple things about sleep. And then to improve sleep in your house, so making this a family affair, involving those that live with you or your extended family to talk about sleep, to make it something more topical instead of this little thing that we don't really talk about but everybody has to do. And if nothing else, as I said, I'm here to put you to sleep. So cuddle up and let's begin. I'm going to share with you just a little bit about the science of sleep. I think it's interesting to know about circadian rhythm and melatonin and cortisol, but you're really here to learn about how to make changes. So I want you to understand some of the health impacts. I want you to understand the safety and performance impacts, and what can be changed, how can we change it, and to take off this I don't need sleep armor. I'm amazed when people say to me, I can make it on 3 hours of sleep and I feel just fine. But I actually did a presentation at Kaiser in San Jose last year, and one of the doctors raised her hand and she said, you're actually speaking to a room full of people that don't know how to sleep anymore. And I'm thinking those are the people that are looking after my health, and they don't know how to sleep. And what are the impacts of that sleep deprivation on their ability to be alert and to give me the advice and information and resources that I need. So I want to share with you, you're familiar, I'm sure all of you, with these different catastrophes, but I want to tell you that every single one of these catastrophes that I am bringing up here for you, 3 Mile Island, Columbia Space Shuttle, the Challenger, Chernobyl, the Exxon Valdez, every one of these accidents was actually a result of some sleep deprivation, whether it be on the part of the operator or someone on site or whatever it may have been. It's a staggering statistic, I think. Over $56 billion and 25,000 lives are actually lost each year due to sleep deprivation-related accidents. That's pretty dramatic, and being in the setting that you are here, I think that becomes even more poignant to know what the impact is in our world for the sleep that we're not getting. So I had to bring up this quote because I thought it was very funny. A sleep researcher said that sleeping is sort of like being blind, dumb, and almost paralyzed. And why? Because we're moving into a state of some paralysis. When we're in our REM state of sleep, we're actually physically paralyzed, even though our minds are very active and working. So it's almost this dichotomy. It's like part of our body is active, but the other part is actually paralyzed, which is really fascinating. But the recent research shows that we sleep, it seems to make a lot of sense. We are sleeping so we can repair, so we can restore, so we can kind of take away the oversaturation of what's happening in our modern day society to recalibrate for the next day. And honestly, circadian rhythm hasn't really changed since the beginning of man. You know, we don't need our tonsils anymore. We may not need our spleen or some other parts of our body. We need to sleep. That's not going to evolutionarily disappear. It hasn't, and all research reports that won't happen as well. So what I'd like to do is very briefly share with you, Dave, a very brief video. This is from Harvard Sleep at the Harvard Medical School, and this is just a 35-second clip just to give you, from a doctor's perspective, the impact of sleep deprivation on our health. Oh, I have to click on it? Okay, I have to click on it. So I'm going to click on it. I apologize, it's small. It was the only way I could embed this here.
Sleep can, at times, seem like an expendable luxury. But animal and human studies showing changes to immune function, metabolic function, and many other aspects of physiology suggest that sleep is actually crucial for long life and quality of life. Human studies show that impairments of immune function, metabolism, and many aspects of attention and mood are altered in ways that would predict earlier mortality or chronic disease.
He seems a little tired. I don't know. But I think it's really important and fascinating. Actually, in the handout, I've given you the link to this website and a couple of others. There's so many interesting pieces of information for you to really learn more about sleep. So that's just a little clip of something that you might see. So here is our circadian rhythm, and this is generally how the flow of our body goes. It doesn't switch around and we have our restorative sleep at 2 in the afternoon necessarily, or we have our restorative repair at 4 in the afternoon. The body does what the body does, and this 24-hour cycle shows us what the body is doing at different stages of sleep. So essentially between 10 and 2, as you can see here, between 10 and 2 is really where our deepest state of sleep happens. And so when we're missing that stage of sleep, that's impacting our body's ability to undertake its brain repair, psychological repair, physical repair. And so it's really fascinating to me to see that people who are going to sleep too late, what sort of chronic disease might be onset. I have 3 teenage sons, and one of them wasn't sleeping. And I saw as days went by that he was sort of disappearing. And so my ex-husband and I decided that we were going to take his computer. At 10 o'clock at night, he was going to have to turn his computer in to sleep. And 4 days later, he sprung out of bed, and I said, "How do you feel today?" He said, "Mom, I feel like Superman." And so I got to actually have my own in-home laboratory to see the impact of this teenager not getting the sleep that he needed. And I work a lot, as Joy was saying, with young children who are severely sleep deprived. I had a client, I went to their home one night, and the wife said to me before I arrived, "When you see my husband, don't be shocked because he's so sleep deprived." This guy didn't have bags, he had suitcases. He looked so incredibly tired because he wasn't getting the sleep he needed because he was sleep deprived. And so certainly some sleep deprivation is caused from different ailments, whether it be restless leg syndrome or sleep apnea or some other medical occurrence. But if we're getting the sleep we need and we have healthy sleep capabilities within our system, if you're getting the sleep you need, then your body will be rewarded by having high functioning capacities throughout the day. So just a little bit about the circadian rhythm there. Joy.
So that shift, is it always between 10 and 2?
Pretty much between 10 and 2.
So if you went to bed at midnight, that whole cycle is getting shifted?
Exactly. You're not getting all 4 hours of your restorative repair, and that's what's really fascinating. I've started to do some research about traveling and the result of jet lag. And I was in Argentina in September and noticed that people were awake much later than we might be awake here. And so the whole clock might shift, but it's happening in this block of time that you can't get some other time of day. It's not like, I'm going to stick restorative repair in my pocket here and I think I'll pull it out at lunchtime and I'll just get some restorative repair there. So this is why, even to suggest that going to sleep earlier, even if you have to get up and work, even if you got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to do your work, it's better you go to sleep at 10 o'clock so your body can get its restorative repair, the psychological, the physiological, the brain function repair. So here are basically the stages of sleep. So there are 4 stages of sleep that the body goes through. And the first one, as I was telling Joy, I was laying in bed last night and I was analyzing what it's like to go from awake to drowsy to asleep. But I was spending too much time analyzing it. It was keeping me from falling asleep. But I was curious in my own mind to see what was it like from being fully awake and then feeling my body start to get tired, melatonin onset, to starting to drift off to sleep. And if I didn't try and catch myself to analyze on your behalf what that felt like, then I would have been right to sleep. And so that's what our bodies are doing in this first phase of sleep, is that we're transitioning from wakefulness to drowsiness and then to sleep. And then we cycle through to stage 2 and stage 3 of sleep, where you have your deepest phase of sleep moving into your rapid eye movement stage. So the first 3 stages are non-REM sleep, and stage 4 is your REM state of sleep. And that's the blind, dumb, and paralyzed. That's where your brain is very active, where there's a lot of brain repair going on, but your bodies are really paralyzed and unable to move and function. And so the body cycles through every 90 to 120 minutes these phases of sleep. So it's interesting when I work with families, for example, with children who are waking up, I'll just use a baby for an example, at 45 minutes. A baby's sleep cycle, they go through all their sleep cycles in 45 minutes, whereas we go through them in 90 to 120 minutes. And so having all of our phases of sleep, where dreaming actually, that phase gets longer in the middle of the night and then starts to wane as it's working toward morning, our bodies need to have all of these phases of sleep in order to go through the restorative function that our minds and bodies need. So if any of you have young children out there and they're waking at 45 minutes, it's not because they're done with their nap, but it's because they are finishing a sleep cycle and don't know how to get back to sleep. And for a lot of adults, the same thing happens, is that we come out of a sleep state and we don't know how to get ourselves back to sleep, whether it be our age or our gender or how much sleep we've had or not had over the previous days or weeks. Our bodies need to have all these stages of sleep. We can't just say, oh, I got REM sleep the other day, I don't need it tonight. We need these stages of sleep each and every day. And so what I'm curious to know, without a raise of hands, is how much sleep you all are getting. And so I have a really fun little exercise to include you in. So if you have a smartphone in your hand, an iPhone, a Droid, or what have you, I'm going to ask you to pull that out. And I want you to think for a moment how many hours of sleep you get most nights. And what we're going to do here is Dave's going to bring up a poll. There it is. And so I want you to, as though you were writing me, and my name was 22333 in the recipient box. And then if you get 4 or less hours of sleep, your code is 176441. 5 to 6, your code is 176621. 7 to 8, 176644. 9 or more, I'd really love you if you did that, 176677. So if you'll just take a minute, send me a message to 22333, and in the message line, how many hours of sleep you get on average, and just hit the send button. We'll take a minute to let people do that. Don't be shy. So there you go. Just take another minute. There you go. Okay, hopefully everybody's got their answer in. So that's a pretty cool tool, isn't it? So without you having to raise your hand and say, oh, I sleep 3 hours a night, fortunately nobody was in the 4 or less, so that's really great to see. But 83%, come on, okay, 71, okay, you're messing with me now. Okay, 75% of you are getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night. And so I want to share with you, is that enough? For those of you that are getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, you might be looking like I am up here. You know, I'm rested, I'm energetic, I'm wide awake. You know, hopefully I use enough concealer that my dark circles don't show too much. And so it's really, wait a minute. Someone's playing with me here. Someone gets less than 4 or less hours of sleep a night. Okay, I want to come over tonight and rock you to sleep. So this is really fascinating information. I'm just going to keep on talking. Okay, so suffice it to say, we can see that the vast majority of people are getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep. So could it be better? Absolutely. I'd love to see that number 27% elevate dramatically for you. And not because I like the fact that people sleep, but you're going to find out soon what happens if you're only getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep, or for the 9% of you that are only getting 4 hours or even less of sleep per night. Thanks, Dave. So here's a really interesting statistic. So again, according to a study that was done by the CDC, 30% of the population is getting less than 6 hours of sleep a night. Again, their statement on the pervasive nature of sleep deprivation and it being almost epidemic in proportion to the amount of sleep that people need. It's putting us at serious risk. It's putting at risk for illness, for safety issues, for concentration, for job performance. I had a client that was a pilot, and I told him, if I get on your plane next week, or I get on a plane and it says, Joe Smith is your pilot today, and I know we haven't really addressed and corrected this problem, I'm getting off and taking the next plane. Because the interesting thing about people not sleeping, as I said earlier, it's not just about you. It's about the people around you, the people that are driving in cars around you, the passengers in trains and planes and automobiles. It's really incredible. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of the health risks are by not getting the sleep that you need. There was a study done by University of California at San Francisco, and it basically said that 6 hours of sleep for 97% of the population is not nearly enough. So there is a rare gene that for 3% of humans, 6 hours of sleep is actually all you need. That's 3%. So maybe there's somebody in the room that falls into that 3%. But for 97% of all of us, 6 hours or less of sleep actually doesn't really even begin to cut it. And I do a lot of work with Dr. Shoshana Bennett, who specializes in postpartum mood disorders, and she works with new families and sharing with them that 5.5 to 6 hours of sleep is just barely bringing you to the surface of being able to function at a proper level. So for those of you that are getting less than 6 hours of sleep, you have to understand that by and large, unless you're part of that 3%, you're definitely not getting the sleep that you need. But there are some variables for sure. Genetics, physiology, age. Women who are going through menopause might have sleep challenges. Sometimes older people might have sleep challenges. If you have a cast on your foot, like Dave, there you are, you have some sleep challenges. And so we have to look at what is it that's taking away from your sleep. And I want to thank you for all of you that have your eyes closed right now. I know that you're with me in spirit, and it's nice to know that you need the rest. So how much sleep is enough? So research indicates that 7 to 8 hours, if you look back at that grid, 7 to 8 hours is really the minimum amount of sleep that we need to be able to function and be restored and repaired. And so this quote here is that basically when you wake up in the morning, if you feel refreshed, if you feel energized, that's the right amount of sleep for you. But like the doctor in San Jose said to me, people don't even know what it feels like to be well rested anymore. We're just going through our day and then crashing it every time we go to sleep, and we get up and we start it all over again. But the chance to take this on as an experiment, and for not just the weekend where you're catching up all your sleep, I think about it as like a squirrel storing nuts for the winter. You know, on Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to get like a bunch of sleep because during the week, I just don't find the time. But if you could really think about sleep as being an everyday need, like air, like water, until they come out with a new version of human beings, we're pretty much going to be sleeping till the end of time. And so you want to think about how is it that I feel when I wake up in the morning, and that's going to be one of your indicators to assess if you're getting the sleep that you need. What are some of the effects of too little sleep? Certainly inhibited productivity and memory. Increased body mass index. So it's interesting to know that if you aren't sleeping, your chances of having a weight issue grows exponentially. So being overweight can cause you not to sleep, and not sleeping can cause you to be overweight. And so when we're looking at this whole new healthcare system and the onus being upon the patients now to look after their own health, this is such an easy fix. People can actually correct chronic disease, obesity, depression, so many ailments simply by getting the sleep that they need. I find that fascinating that we actually have at our fingertips the solution for a lot of our ailments. Your increased risk for motor vehicle accidents, diabetes and heart problems, psychiatric conditions such as depression, substance abuse. This is pretty heavy stuff. You know, so sleep isn't just something that we do or something that we don't have time to do. These are the implications of not getting the sleep that you need. And the decreased ability to pay attention, to react to signals, or remember new information. So when you're driving on the road and you find yourself having zoned off somewhere and there's a stoplight that you almost went through, you know, that's scary stuff. And the people around you are going to be impacted by your capacity and your reaction time. And so, are you sleep deprived? This is what I want you to start asking yourself. You might be sleep deprived if some of these things resonate with you, that you need an alarm clock to be woken up, or you keep hitting the snooze button to go back to sleep. So this morning, I woke up at about 15 minutes before my alarm. So I was really excited that I woke up before my alarm, which told me that I probably got the sleep that I needed. Are you having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning? Feeling sluggish in the afternoon, drowsy after meals, need to nap throughout the day? If Joy finds you under your desk a few times a day, it's probably time to get some rest during the night. And other things, falling asleep, watching TV, sleeping a lot on the weekends, etc. And so, needless to say, these are the impacts that you're going to be experiencing if you're not getting the sleep, or you're already experiencing because you're not getting the sleep that you need, on a personal level and on the job level. So an interesting statistic, the Harvard School of Sleep Medicine did a study and found that corporations are losing $62 billion a year in performance due to sleep deprivation amongst their employees. That's presenteeism, that's absenteeism, that's on-the-job accidents, it's impaired judgment, it's error in our work. That's a pretty staggering number. And so it's even more important for us to understand that we're impacting our place of employment, and we're impacting how well we're getting our jobs done, and what that's doing to, in your environment, the safety of those outside in the world. So I've talked about some of these already. I won't belabor it too much longer, but what's important to say is that it's not just that you're cranky, but you're cranky and you're eating too much and you can't concentrate. And so a lot of these things are actually happening simultaneously. And so the goal is for you to start to correct some of these byproducts of the sleep that you're not getting. So are you sleep deprived? Me, you. I'm not sleep deprived most of the time. Sometimes I am. Obviously, we have a lot of things that are going on in our mind. And research shows, too, that a lot of the deprivation that we experience is due to overthinking. We're laying in bed. We're thinking about the project we didn't get done, the pair of shoes we shouldn't have bought that we did and can't be returned, whatever it might be, silly or major. My son's not sleeping. I'm losing sleep because my son's not sleeping. These are concerning issues. So for you to think about what's your level of sleep deprivation. And so I want to give you the opportunity to actually find out for yourself. And how can we find out for yourself? Joy's going to give you a handout shortly, and if you want to give it out now, that's fine too. WebMD has a fantastic self-assessment that you can do. It is completely anonymous. You don't put in your name, your email address. I work at Sandia National Laboratories. This is completely anonymous. And it takes maybe 5 minutes. And what it does is gives you the opportunity to assess if you are experiencing some sleep deprivation. And most of you, if you're here, you're tired. I can't imagine that you had nothing else to do from 11 to 12 o'clock today other than come and listen to me talk about sleep if you didn't have a sleep need or someone in your family didn't. So this checklist, if you will, is an opportunity for you to provide yourself with some information. It's going to give you some tips and tools. It's going to give you some awareness about how sleep deprived you are relative to the expectations of the norm, and it also will give you an opportunity to have a tangible document to take to your doctor at your next physical. I find when I go to my physical, my doctor is checking my blood pressure, checking my pupils, checking my height and weight, but she's not really asking me about my sleep. And it's interesting, Target Stores is doing a huge project, if you will. They're asking people to submit solutions to simplify the healthcare system. And so I'm actually submitting a proposal to talk about how easy a solution there might be, and especially when the onus, as I said earlier, is going to be on us more and more for our own health and wellness. And so knowing that we can actually correct and reverse some of the things that our doctors are reporting, that we're pre-diabetic, that we need to lose 60 pounds, that our depression may not be chemical but might be related to sleep deprivation. I think it's really fascinating for us to find this out. So for yourself, for your family, your coworkers, anybody can do this. It takes 5 minutes. It's not saved. It's just for you to have, and then it disappears. And so I really urge you all to take a few minutes to do this assessment and see where you fall on the continuum. On the other side of the handout that Joy just gave you is actually a sleep diary, and this is really where the rubber meets the road. This is an opportunity for you to actually track your sleep, how well you're sleeping, what happens when you don't sleep well, or what happens as a result of what you're doing in a day and how it's impacting your sleep. So it's not that lengthy, but it does take commitment. So this log is for 7 days. You're welcome to fill it out for a week or 2 weeks, and it will really start to show you how your activities are impacting your sleep and how your sleep is impacting your activities. So this is another really great tool. Again, I can't do it for you. I want you to really take this seriously and to take the time to fill out this diary. And then next week, right now this is information and this is resources. But next week I really want to get into solutions. I'm going to provide you with solutions about things that are getting in the way of your sleep, creating a conducive bedtime ritual or routine, optimizing your room environment so that your senses are receiving messages of sleep. The National Sleep Foundation, which is one of the links that I gave you, has a wonderful website that actually shows how to create an optimal room environment. I'm going to talk to you about your iPads and your computers and television and alcohol and food and all of these things that we might be indulging in before we go to bed and how that's impacting our sleep. So this is your chance to self-assess. And you're welcome to bring it with you again next week, but more so for you to have it and to keep track and give yourself the opportunity to start trying to make changes. If you find that you're up late watching reruns of The West Wing or whatever it might be, maybe you're going to watch it another time of day. Because it's not just the TV that you're watching. I'll just give you a little secret here. It's not just the TV that you're watching. It's not just the iPad that you're looking at. It's what's happening with the emissions of the blue light. The blue light from these electronics are actually suppressing our melatonin production. And you can research that right today. That blue light emissions are reducing the melatonin production and can actually be impacting our body's capacity to produce melatonin. So we have melatonin and we have cortisol. Melatonin is, I call it the sleep drug that our bodies have. I have friends that take synthetic melatonin because they think they can't produce melatonin and fall asleep. Even my own boyfriend takes synthetic melatonin, and I did this little dry run for him yesterday, and last night he slept 7 hours on his own because he realized he was going to bed too late, and it wasn't that his body doesn't produce melatonin, but he was crossing over from melatonin to cortisol, and so he's having a hard time settling into sleep and or staying asleep. So we actually have a lot of the tools right within our body. And so that's what's exciting, is that you have the opportunity to reverse some of your behaviors to actually be preventive in your sleep deprivation. So what's happened this time with me today is I just wanted to give you an introduction to understanding the health and safety impacts of sleep deprivation and what happens to our body when we sleep, the circadian rhythm, our REM and our non-REM sleep cycles. How much sleep is enough? You may be in that rare 3%. But if not, and you are in that block of 5 to 6 hours of sleepers, you realize that perhaps you need a little bit more sleep than you're getting, or maybe a lot more sleep for those of you that were in the far left of that grid. To do your self-assessment on WebMD and to take seriously the implications. And as the gentleman said in the video, sleeping can actually cause early onset of mortality. That's pretty shocking. You know, the research about Michael Jackson, I hate to, be People Magazine here, but he died to sleep. He was so sleep deprived that the JetBlue pilot who went sideways on his flight not so long ago was sleep deprived. It's really incredible how our bodies can just go sideways if we're not getting the rest that we need. And your sleep diary. So take the time to fill out your sleep diary. Share it with your teens or your partners at home, or your mother-in-law, or whomever you know might benefit from something like this. So again, this is for me to start opening up your eyes and opening up your minds about looking at sleep that you're getting or not getting. And then next week, I'm going to come back and talk with you more about understanding your sleep needs, the health implications, going into more detail about the health implications, what's standing between you and a good night's rest. I'm going to give you some practical solutions. I'm going to give you some handouts to improve your own sleep hygiene. And I use that term, and sleep consultants use that term, sleep hygiene, because just like we wash our face and we brush our teeth, that's part of our self-care. Sleep hygiene is another one of those self-care things that just really shouldn't be optional. And what behaviors you can change. So there may be things that you can change, and there may be things that you can't change. If you're a shift worker, for example, you're not getting sleep between 10 and 2 because you're working. So what happens to someone who's in that situation? Or you have a young child at home, and you're not getting the sleep that you need. Or your partner snores. I have a client right now where he wears a sleep apnea monitor, and she has to be able to sleep in the same room with him and listen to this machine going all night. So how is your sleep, your snoring, your movements affecting the person you might be sharing a bed with? So I want to take a few minutes, if I may, to answer any questions that you might have. Again, I have so much more to say. This is just one of our 3-part series. So please, if you have any questions, comments, on your page there, as I said, there are links to 3 really reliable, informative websites to give you even more information. But I'm really hopeful that you're going to take this information to heart and do these self-assessments and keep the diary so you can start to improve the sleep that you're getting. Any questions from anybody in the room?
Karen, it'd be best if we could get the questions on the microphone for the video.
Oh, yes.
We actually need the person asking the question on the microphone.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
No problem. Is there anyone that could run a mic?
I feel like a talk show host. Jimmy Kimmel Live.
You talked about the importance of 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Why is it not the same if it's midnight to 4 a.m., for example?
That's a great question. And so what I was sharing was the circadian rhythm was designed, in the beginning of mankind, it's a really good question why, if you're getting 4 hours somewhere else, you're not getting the same sort of sleep as you'd be getting if you were sleeping in that 10 to 2 period of time. Research has shown that 10 to 2 is the peak time for restorative repair. So I don't think that we get to choose. That's what I was saying earlier, was that we can't say, I think I'll do my restorative repair from 11 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. So it's just the body's design that unless we have other ways of restoring our bodies, the body does it at this block of time. So our deepest state of sleep is happening between 10 and 2. And so according to science, that's when the most body repair goes on, restorative repair for mind, body, and brain development. So I'm not a scientist, but I'm sure you could go on to the website and download one of those links that'll give you that scientific explanation. I'd love to give it to you, but I don't want to stumble and not give you the right answer.
Is that true for teenagers, too? That seem to want to stay up later and sleep later?
It's so awesome that you asked that. So the question was, is this the same for teenagers? No. There's actually some research that shows that teenagers don't actually onset their strong melatonin production until about 11 o'clock at night. And so I'm actually doing some work with a pediatrician in Contra Costa County. We're trying to work to get high schools to start an hour later, because I have 3 teenagers that are in high school, and there's actually, you will find if you go to the Harvard site that I gave you, there's actually a video about the fact that there's a shift in teen sleep cycles, that 11 o'clock, if I take my son's computer away at 10 o'clock at night, so he'll be asleep by 11, because I know if I take it away at 9, for him to go to bed at 10, he'll probably lay there for an hour. There is a physiological difference in teen sleep than in our sleep. And so to this question about the circadian rhythm and the restorative repair, if a teen's asleep at 11 o'clock, they're still going to get their restorative repair. That's a interesting thing for me to find out, is that does that 4-hour shift in restorative repair change for teens who are really only ready to sleep starting at around 11 o'clock at night? And that doesn't remain. As they get older, that drive changes. But in the teen years, if you have teens at home and they can't go to bed till 11, it's not just because they're being, sassy and, I'm not going to sleep until 11, but it's because they can't. But what happens for a lot of those teens is that they're on their iPads, they're texting, they're YouTubing, they're doing all of these things. And so even if they turn off their electronics, their bodies may be suffering because that blue light is suppressing their melatonin production. That's a fascinating question.
What benefits, if any, are there of sleeping in on the weekends?
So we talk about, so what are the benefits of sleeping in on the weekends? So what the research I've done shows is that if we have a sleep deficit, sleeping in on the weekends is going to help reduce that deficit, but it's not going to sustain us for the next week. So research says having the same amount of sleep 7 days a week is optimal for body function. However, if you're not getting the sleep that you need during the week, you can, quote unquote, sort of make it up a little bit sleeping on the weekends. But scientifically, it's not a sustainable model for good health.
So if one of my kids wakes me up, say, an hour before I was planning to get up, that's not enough time to complete that 90 to 120 minute sleep cycle. Is it better to just get up and start the day early, or should I try to go back to sleep even though I won't have time to finish that sleep cycle?
Wow. Okay, the question is, how old's your child?
I have a 6, a 4, and a year and a half.
Okay, so if the child wakes him up before he's scheduled to get up, if you will, should he go back to sleep, or should he just go ahead and get up? So I would say it's probably better to get up, because if you take a partial sleep and you're not finishing a sleep cycle, you might actually wake up more groggy than if you just got up. And next week I'm actually going to talk about naps, because there's actually some information about how long should a nap be that actually creates restorative short-term a boost, if you will, versus sleeping for the 37 minutes. And is that long enough, or is that too long? And what is your physical state going to be when you wake up from that sort of partial sleep? So because our sleep states are 90 to 120 minute cycles, if you had time to go back to sleep for 2 hours and you were able to go back to sleep, you may be able to and have another full cycle of sleep. The problem is we don't know where in your sleep cycle you got woken up.
right? So where are you? Were you in a REM cycle or a non-REM cycle? And so even though it's harder to be woken up in some stages versus others, 1.5-year-old tugging on your arm is surely to wake you up. So my answer to you would be, it's probably better to get up 45 minutes versus trying to get back to sleep, and by the time you're back to sleep again, you have to get up.
If you do use an iPad or a computer or a phone with the blue light that suppresses the melatonin, and knowing that, can you just pop a few melatonin and to get the production back going?
So since I don't take melatonin, I don't know how long it actually takes to take effect. So I'm sort of picturing you pop a couple melatonin, you work on your iPad for a while, you turn it off, you go to sleep. You should try it. And then you can tell me, because I don't really know. But I will tell you that the drive to sleep, when it's diminished, even if you take a melatonin, it may not have its intended effect. I don't know what dosage you might take, or if you pop 1 or 2 or what have you, but it's basically the blue light in front of your eyes by about 14 inches works fairly rapidly to suppress your melatonin. If you took a synthetic melatonin while you're on the iPad and turned it off, would you go to sleep like you would? I don't know. That's a really good question. Do you take synthetic melatonin? Yeah, it's okay. Not me ashamed of. I'd be interested if you tried that this week. I don't know.
Because I'm tired during the day.
Yeah.
And then when it's bedtime, I'm like not tired.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I need to be tired. And,
right.
And I don't understand why I get a second wind at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night.
Okay. I'm going to answer that. Why does she get a second wind at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night? We have melatonin and we have cortisol. And I consider those to be like David and Goliath. And so here's David. He's really, cute guy, kind of scruffy beard, little sack of pebbles. You've got Goliath, big, hairy, mean giant. David's not bringing Goliath down. Goliath is going to win every time. So my guess is, without doing an analysis of you, that you might be overly tired. And what's happening is that you're crossing over the line of being optimally tired to getting that drive of cortisol in your system. And so now you can't settle yourself down to sleep because you're actually overly tired. And when I work with families, I see this a lot, that it's not that you're not tired. It's that you're overly tired, but chemically, your body is not in the right place to let you go to sleep. You think about laying in bed at night. You're so tired, you're wide awake. That's probably happened to all of us at one time or another. It's not because you're not tired. It's almost like you're past tired. You're past the point of no return. Goliath is in bed with you now, and David's, he's off doing something else. So that's how I like to give a lot of visuals, because I think it sort of drives it home. So I would say to you that you should pay attention to your sleep drive. Going to bed at 9 o'clock at night, that's for babies, right? You've got things to do. You've got teenagers to monitor and what have you. But it may be, if you have the opportunity to do the sleep diary and experiment, you say to your family, hey, for 3 nights, I'm going to see what happens if I go to sleep at 9 o'clock. What will happen for me? And you maybe can reset your rhythm by catching up on your sleep, like this gentleman was asking, is getting sleep on the weekend beneficial? It can help with its sleep deficit, but at some point you have to get on the right track. So if you could listen to your sleep drive and go to sleep when your body said it was tired, it'd be interesting to see what would happen. And if you could then reset yourself to a little bit of a later bedtime because you're not as overly tired and your sleep drive is coming on at 9 o'clock when you still have things to do and people to see.
So my middle child has always been what we would term a night person.
Yes.
We used to say our life would be better if we could find a night grade school. and kind of going from what, your previous conversation, she's 25 now.
Yeah.
She's never slept well.
Yeah.
She is a stay up all night and sleep all day kind of person. Can you reset someone like that? We have tried all sorts of different things, but can you actually reset them to a more normal sleep cycle?
So she's talking about her child who's now an adult and has never really slept well. She said they wish they had night grade school for her daughter when she was younger. I think that's a scientific question. I think that's a medical question. There may be, and I'm guessing, I'm not a doctor, but there may be an impairment in her melatonin production. There may be some sort of sleep disorder. I've worked with maybe 3 families in my 10 years where there was a sleep disorder. The Stanford Hospital has a sleep institute. They're actually, the Palo Alto Medical Foundation opened a sleep center in Fremont. You may know about all of these already, but I don't think that's necessarily gee, if she went to sleep at 9 o'clock like this woman here, she could probably reset it. Because if this is a lifelong problem, it may not be behavioral. It might be medical in nature. So I don't know if she'd be interested in doing the WebMD, review or keeping a sleep diary, but if she's been this way since she was a child and you've tried everything, I'm thinking it might be something chemical in nature. Has she done a sleep study? Yeah.
We've taken her to many doctors who, when you take a child who you say is sleep deprived to a pediatrician, they kind of blow you off like you're stupid. And so that, throughout her life has been pretty frustrating. And then she gets frustrated because, why are you wasting my time? I'm just the way I am.
And so that happens a lot. Pediatricians, because I work a lot with children, pediatricians will say either, just let the baby cry it out. They'll finally fall asleep. Or you must be too much sugar, too much TV, too much this, and all these things that we can use as easy sort of cop-outs for why this child isn't sleeping. If she were my daughter, I would actually contact the Stanford Sleep Institute. I would contact the Palo Alto Medical Foundation in Fremont. I think that she might be able to be helped, but I think she's going to have to probably be hooked up to electrodes, and they're going to monitor her sleep. And actually, just very briefly, if I may, this was from the Sunday paper. And it was really interesting to say, just let me read this to you, a doctor from the Mayo Clinic, this business of sleep deprivation is not so much a disorder as a choice. And one of the reasons it's a choice is people don't quite understand or realize the consequences of not getting enough sleep. But this article starts out talking about a gentleman who did a sleep study and was hooked up to electrodes, and they were waking him to see how his body functioned, and they actually were able to solve his problem. So she probably could get help, but I think it's going to be more specialized than a pediatrician or a sleep consultant or a behavior modification. That's my guess. Joy, any questions that you might have for me? Okay. Anything else from any of you? So thank you. Oh, yes. Hang on one second.
You mentioned the blue light regarding screens and so on. What about televisions being further away? Same thing, blue light?
It's really more when it's closer to your face. So people watch television to relax and go to sleep. It's still stimulating the senses. So it may not be the same melatonin suppression as you're getting from something that's a little closer to your face, but I think that it's still having your mind is active. If you've been watching Criminal Justice or whatever those shows are called, and your mind is going, or you've passed your sleep window, I think that's where the impact of television is. Now, if you look at the National Sleep Foundation, they will say that the bedroom should not be used for, reading or television or working on your computer or what have you. So it sort of goes against what most people do. Most people will read a chapter of a book or watch a television show or what have you to get to sleep. It's not that those activities are wrong, but if you go onto the National Sleep Foundation's website, they're recommending that none of those activities are actually happening in the bedroom, that we keep the bedroom as sort of a sanctuary of sleep so that it's optimally arranged for us to get the sleep we need. Watching television at night, I don't think that it has the same impact as the other things that I mentioned. I'm getting good exercise here.
So if you are way dead tired and you just can't go to sleep, what do you do about it?
If you're way dead tired and you just can't go to sleep, what do you do about it? So the question would either be similar to this woman and her daughter, or what is it that you don't know that you're doing that might be impacting your sleep? And I don't want to give away my thunder for next week, but I'm going to talk to you about the foods that you're eating, the activities that you're involved in, the blue light melatonin suppression, our room environment. You know, people sleep with their telephones plugged in, recharging on their nightstand. The blue light is on all night. It's really interesting. Is there an impact there? Am I having a glass of wine before I go to bed? Because we all know that a glass of red wine is good for our health. But you know that actually alcohol is dehydrating, and it can actually impact the depth of your sleep. So these are some of the things I'm going to be sharing with you. Are you having foods? I'm going to actually share with you next week food inhibitors or sleep inhibitors that are, I can't say this properly, sleep stealers and sleep enhancers that are foods. So foods you can actually consume that actually will help you sleep or that can take away from your sleep. And it's not all the obvious, caffeine or chocolate sorts of things. There's a lot of foods that actually can help you settle into sleep because of the properties. Bananas and potatoes and some things that you wouldn't even think about that I'm going to tell you about next week. So it may be interesting for you to think about, what are my pre-bedtime activities? Sometimes people will exercise before they go to bed, have a rush of energy, they can't settle down. So exercising earlier in the day. So if you look at that sleep diary and you sort of assess, what are my activities and what are the things that I didn't even know might be getting in the way of my sleep, you might find some interesting things. And also, as this other woman was saying, not crossing that drive to sleep, but actually accepting, acknowledging that drive to sleep and getting the sleep you need, even if it means going to bed earlier, which isn't something you haven't done, since your, school days. So I'd love to see what you come up with and to share some more ideas with you next week. Someone raised their hand. Yes.
You see, the blue light is not good for sleeping. Is there a preferable, alarm clock color?
Oh, that's such a good question. A preferable alarm clock color. I don't have the answer to that, but I'm going to come back and see me next week. I promise you'll have the answer to that. There are some websites that actually say that an alarm clock that doesn't actually have an illumination, that it actually rings, but you're not looking at the clock, because that's another thing that keeps people awake. We have 3 more hours to sleep. 2 o'clock, okay, 4 more hours of sleep. So we've activated our mind because we're looking at the clock. So is it the blue light from the clock, or is it now we've put our brain into an active state because we're counting how many more sheep we get to count before we have to start our day? So I'll share with you. Last night I woke up at 4 o'clock. I thought I heard music. And I did exactly that. It's okay, I have until 7:30 to sleep. So I started having that conversation with myself. It's like, okay, can't have that conversation. Back to sleep. So someone was nodding their head. Or you turn the clock away and you aren't looking at a clock. Because if you're sleeping, you don't really need to know what time it is. All you need to know is that you need to wake up at X time. The clock is probably going to wake you up. And again, if you're getting restorative sleep, you may not even need an alarm clock, because your body is going to wake up when it's restoratively rested and refreshed to start the day, which would be a wonderful thing for all of us. But I'm going to find out if there's a preferred color. I love your questions. Here I go again.
If you're woken up like in REM or like stage 3 or REM, and then you try and go back to sleep, do you start back at stage 1, or do you start where you left off? Or does it matter how long you were awake?
God's such a good. She's saying if you're woken up and you're in the middle of a phase of sleep, you don't get it back. You don't say, okay, I'm going to close my eyes again, and now I'm going to go, boop, right? It's like you want to go back to that dream, right? I have great dreams. I want to go back to my dreams. I want to know what happens with Joy when she's on that safari. But now she's, sitting in a chair in an auditorium, You can't go back to where you were. You're starting again. But the problem with that is if you didn't complete that cycle of sleep where there was repair going on, you've lost that opportunity. And so now your body is starting again. The research I've done says that not necessarily are you going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is really only happening at the beginning of your sleep. So you're really more in stages 2 and 3. So you're going into your rapid eye movement and back to 2 and 3 and then back to REM. And so REM state actually starts to extend towards the middle of the night and then starts to reduce as we're going towards morning. But that's a really good question. You're not really able to go back and get what just got taken away from you. It's a really good question. It's like the waiter takes your plate away. It's like, but I wasn't done with that yet. It's already in the garbage. You don't get it back. That's a really good question. I think that's it for today. Thank you very much for being with me. Please join me next Tuesday at 11 o'clock right back here, and we will get into providing you some solutions and some more answers to your sleep questions. Oh, and please sign the attendance sheet. Thank you very much. On your way out, if you wouldn't mind signing the attendance sheet, that would be awesome. Thanks so much for your time and attention.